Good evening, everybody. Colin Livingston here. Welcome to Talking Torque special episode of Talking Torque, which we're calling Spotter Talk. Going to be joined by a couple of my friends from the NASCAR Pinty series, which will be known as the NASCAR Canada series, brought to you by Pinty's and Envirom, I believe. Not really sure what the name is on that, or not really sure what the whole thing is. We'll have to shake that down. Supposed to have a couple of spotter friends join me. Quite accomplished spotters, but more than anything, as we always try to do here on Talking Torque, is show some behind the scenes stuff, give people a little perspective, whether it's the behind the scenes of business or the behind the scenes of racing, to show a little bit more what goes on, things that don't make it to broadcast, things that aren't necessarily widely discussed. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, been a very, very hectic off season here, especially this week. Been following a lot of the news stories. Obviously, F1 is kind of the forefront right now, making news. IndyCar's had their started doing their media days, media appearances. On the F1 side, fan favorites. I think I don't think I've ever heard a bad word spoken. Gunther Steiner was relieved of his duties over at Haas F1. Been with the team since its inception. It's really shocking how they've promoted one of their director of engineering, Mr. Komatsu, gets promoted to team principal. How much of a difference will it make? I'm not really sure. The team is still fairly low budget. Ferrari announcing that they're going to replace 95% of the components from their 2023 car to their 24 car. That's a lot of things to be changed. Obviously, not happy with the way things went last year and hoping for something different this year. But that could also result in going pretty far down the wrong path. Mercedes, obviously, in the same boat. They're going to be changing an awful lot over, from 2023 to 24. Namely, I think one of the biggest things they have to deal with is, the driver position. Lewis Hamilton, very vocal about, feeling, sitting too far forward and really losing the feel for the car. But it'd be interesting. Always a lot of turmoil, very tumultuous time. Red Bull already saying that they're done with their 2024 car already, and they're focusing their attention is already on their 2025 Challenger. So that's going to be kind of crazy. But one of our guests, one of our friends, previous guest here on Talking Torque, one of our spotter friends has managed to join us here. We'll throw it open here. Come on. Mr. MP Roy, how are you doing, my man?
I am doing fine, and the tradition continues. What are we drinking tonight?
For me, I have got a BCA infused water, so I'm being a sissy. But I've also got to be conditioned, or I'm in full training because I'm like 3 weeks away from potentially doing a shifter race down in Tucson. Shifter is no joke. Shifter is like, as about as tough as it gets in the world of racing. And after, being out of the cart now for, really 3.5, 4 months, I really need to start taking conditioning seriously. So I've already done seven full gym sessions in the first 11 days of the year. When we're done here, depending on how much I have to do at the shop, I might get home and just get on my bike again. So unfortunately or fortunately, it's just water.
Shifter carts are serious business. Training is serious business for you. I guess that's as serious.
I don't object. I mean, I if I had to get subjected to this show, I'd probably be drinking too. So the good news for me is, I mean, my fridge is like right there. I could always I could make you the center of attention. I could mute my mic, go grab something out of the fridge in no time at all. But yeah,
I'll just get up and reach for my fridge, which is about.
Well, that's no problem. I've got, like I said, a contractor friend of mine is coming by. We're in the middle of reconfiguring. We've got not an associated, but a friend of mine is starting a little business that is going to require some space in the back of our shop. So we've been spending lots of time from last week till this week reconfiguring, taking shelves down. Like I said, I've got a 25 horsepower compressor. So we just moved that from one part of the shop over here, and making things worse. Well, yeah, right now we're back to minus 30 here in Edmonton. So, getting the forklift outside, you gotta want it. I've probably been outside 10 times today and I haven't had a coat on yet. Just throw all my gloves and my toque, and as long as we're not outside for more than 5 minutes, we're we're okay. But hoping to see at least one more of our spotter buddies join us, but
he better
show up. Otherwise, I'm not sure what the tax is going to be. I'm going to send him a text as we're going here. How's your off season been?
It's been pretty good. Actually, it got busy up until, I guess, October, November. Then got a little break, and then the wife said at the end of the month, "Let's go for some cool rest, relaxation, the sun, the sand, and of course, motor cars." We went to the snowball derby, so that got us excited. So, and then after that, I guess it got into festive season. That's when you eat every day, a feast. So we did a lot of that, and fortunately, I don't know if you were aware, Quebec schools. I think there was some like 80,000. Actually, it must have been more than that. 80% of the children were on strike. The teachers were on strike, so they didn't have school. So for the last 41 days, the kids were at home. So I'm really excited. They're back to school since Tuesday, so now I have a break.
Fantastic. I just sent him a text, and as soon as I do, we're going to add number 3 here. Mr. Woo-hoo! Ken Katu, how are you doing, Kenny?
I am doing good. You're able to hear me fine?
Him as Mr.
More than
absolutely. Yeah. Please address Mr. Spotter.
Mr. is my father, by the way.
Yeah, well, you know what? You've definitely got the longevity out of this group, or seniority, or whatever you want to call it. Little bit unique to see Kenny without his hat on. I didn't quite recognize you. I might have to put on my glasses here just to kind of get you in focus.
Well, bear with me for a second. I can go get it. It's not far away.
Yeah, I'm sure it isn't. We, like I was telling MP here, it's minus 30 in Edmonton, so we would not have a need for that kind of hat on a day like today.
Exactly. Yes.
I leave you the temperature. I leave that to you, my friend. It's way too cold for me.
So the only thing we got with you, Ken, is we got about a half to 3/4 of a second delay there. So if you see us kind of staring at you blankly, that just means we're waiting for a response. So
he's always a 1/4 of a second ahead of us.
He was this year for sure.
I've had to resort to my phone, so my computer would not connect, my iPad would not connect, and now I'm on my phone.
Fantastic. Well, better that than nothing. And I like that you got the landscape view lined up here. More Kenny for us to love.
Oh, okay. That's what I did. Okay, I can do it the other way.
No, this is perfect. Everyone's on the same platform here. So we've had MP on before. Let's get people a little introduction to you, Ken. First of all, the easy question. We're going to start off with some softballs here. How did you get into racing?
Well, racing for me began as a youngin'. I had an uncle that raced uh, asphalt races, hobby stock, when I was a kid. So my parents would take me to watch him race. Then there was a little bit of a hiatus, I guess, in the middle of that, my teenage years, when I didn't attend many races at all. And then I went to Michigan to watch a cup race one year with a friend that I was invited to go with. And then that evolved to going to about 6 to 10 cup races a year. And then I got asked to help a fellow when he was going to a late model racing in the Hooters Pro Cup Series. And then it just, as they say, snowballed from there. So
They haven't been able to get rid of you since.
well, they've tried, right? They've tried, but I keep kicking and scratching and fighting and stick around. So yeah.
Let's just be clear that probation and suspension isn't getting rid of somebody. So
Is there a story behind all that, do you think?
no, I'm just saying, as far as technicality, pure technicality goes, that's not getting rid of you, no matter how hard the series tries. Now, you've mentioned, obviously, we know you from the NASCAR Pinty series, which is now going to be known, and I'm not even sure, maybe you guys know, we're going to be called the NASCAR Canada series, presented by Pinty's and Envirom. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
That's
Close enough.
what I hear. Yep.
So we're going to go by NASCAR Canada. You mentioned that you've attended, mostly stock car racing. Kenny, do you follow any other types of racing? Does any other type interest you?
Well, from a spectating standpoint, if I was to go and watch local racing a few years back, I would be gone to a dirt track. I would drive past asphalt tracks and head to a dirt. Just I enjoyed the way that the tracks kept the evening flowing. There was not the downtime. There was not the long cautions. There was not, right, and I enjoyed that much better.
Gotcha.
Spectate, or from a spectator standpoint.
So, I mean, I love any form of racing, but what's your thought? I've got very absolute thoughts on stock cars on dirt. Do you voice an opinion, or do you just go where you're told, or do we stay away from that?
Um, I basically it racing on dirt. That's all that Pinty's has done, or the Pinty NASCAR Canada has done. It's not a true dirt race by any stretch of the imagination, in my humble opinion.
What do you think, Mr. MP?
Absolutely. I totally agree with what Ken said. As a matter of fact, you guys might not be aware of this, but 2 weeks after the weekend, or week, I should say, I was invited on a French chatter website about racing. And David Hebert, the guy that was driving the one car, was also on the show. And the big debate was what a shameful exercise it was for dirt racing, what went on. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, guys. You can't be saying that it was an awful race. It wasn't a true 3 wide on the cushion type of racing that some of the people on dirt are used to. But I seen a lot of crisscrossing. I seen a lot of racing going on, and maybe it wasn't happening in the first two positions, but it was definitely racy. Now, was it sideways the way some of the dirt guys are used to seeing, let's say, an outlaw modified? Absolutely not. But it was a great show. It got to showcase our cars, our drivers to the dirt community, and the dirt community got to see what our cars were about. It's all about the experience and the event, you know. And so I'm all for it. As Kenny said, was it the best dirt racing show? No, it was not. It was a stock car on dirt show.
Yep. Yeah, and I can't come up with an argument. First of all, I will say Glenn Stiers, Clinton Jeffrey, Adam Ross, everyone at Oswego Speedway, love you guys to pieces, man. Like, and I know how much effort and expense there is to get the track ready to, you know, and what Glenn and the staff there do, absolutely second to none. But I don't think that we're actually accomplishing an awful lot. The show, if we were the only cars that night, or if it was, you know, two or three classes of stock cars that are on dirt, you can make a fair comparison. But we're running around the track in 18 seconds, and then all of a sudden a sprint car gets out there that's built for that, you know, they're running 13.8, 14-second laps and just tearing it up, where, you know, I've talked to a number of drivers there, and they describe our cars on the dirt as, you know, worse than driving on ice. Like, there's no traction. You're just kind of hanging on for dear life every moment of every lap, which I don't think we're ever going to get a true dirt fan to convert over to what we're doing. And I don't think that we're going to get our fans watching dirt, because we might lose fans because they're going to see what these sprint cars do over there and say, man, you guys race like this every week. Where we only kind of do a touch and go. But I was never really a fan until I saw what Glenn and those guys did, and the reception that they gave us and the hospitality that was extended to our series was unlike anything we've really seen anywhere else. But even back to when they started racing, you know, trucks on the dirt, and, you know, they're trying to run multiple dirt races. I don't know. To me, it actually comes across as fairly disrespectful that, you know, NASCAR as an organization says, well, we're just going to run wherever we want. We're going to build a track inside the LA County Coliseum, and we're going to take these big cup cars and run on a quarter-mile oval. We're going to run on dirt. We're going to take our truck. To me, it's just, there's a reason why they don't build cars that look like ours to run, you know, in these alleys, in these avenues. But obviously the series is going back there this year. I think a little bit wiser that we're only going to do a single night instead of the marathon that we ran this year. But yeah, I can keep talking until I get myself into trouble. I just say one more time, absolutely none of my reservations have anything to do with Oswego, with Glenn, with Clinton, with Adam, like, or anybody there. We get treated so well. I just don't think that we put on a show that's all that exciting, because the cars just can't race the way that they're intended to race, and we can't drive like a sprint car can.
But I have a question for you, Colin. Your benchmark seems to be the speed differential. So, and it's just a question I'm throwing out there. Then we should all be driving Formula Ones, right?
No, it's not about the speed. It's about the fact that a sprint car is built to run on the dirt. I mean, the stagger that those cars have, the type of tire that they have, you know, it doesn't matter. I've watched late models run on dirt. You know, we've got a great dirt track here in town. It doesn't have to be quick. The cars just have to be built to do it, and the drivers have to have some exposure to be able to practice.
But what I meant by my statement was, yes, the sprint cars go a heck of a lot faster than the stock cars did, but I can show you stock car appearing race cars that would have gotten probably to a 14 or a 15-second lap time had they been allowed to make the necessary modification. But then it becomes a balance between cost, preparation, and giving the best show. I think the NASCAR organization made a decision that they would limit what they could do to the cars to race those nights, and that was a cost and labor uh, effort. If, for example, they kept the limitation on car heights and what you could do to I'm going to say a maximum as opposed to a minimum, so that somebody wouldn't build a car just for that one race, and I agree with that. Now, but to your statement, if we are to try and attract new fans, gotta find a recipe that's going to make us a little more attractive to a dirt fan. But on the other hand, the show was damn entertaining. I wasn't spotting anybody that night, so I was just enjoying. And I can tell you the back and forth, the side to side, top of them was happening throughout the field. To see guys like Thomas Neveu, who's not a top three runner was absolutely fantastic, and see some of the local Ontario guys that don't necessarily run the tour run with our racers was also something that was pretty exciting. I think that the fact that it was a different surface allowed for that. But you know what?
Yeah,
We'll debate it by going us three to a dirt track with a beer in hand, no spotter headset, and then we can say if we like it or don't.
yeah, I'm not sure I agree to that, but we can go to any track you want. Again, it's not about the speed; it's that our cars did not connect, and they weren't able to drive, moderately competitively. Yes, the 5 wide stuff was cool, and drivers being able to switch lanes and run high one corner, run low the next corner. That was all great. But then all of a sudden, the sprint cars came out afterwards, and by comparison, it just didn't compare. Like our cars looked like a bunch of elderly people trying to walk over to the buffet line on the middle of an icy sidewalk, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is what these things are supposed to look like. And these guys are chewing up the track. They could run anywhere they wanted. They could but they're built for it. And again, it's just a comparative thing. It's not that unless you're going to do that, you could put a IMCA modified out there. They put on a great show. It's just a different style of car. So anyway, I think you want to probably argue a bit more.
That started well. Right, Ken?
It did. See what I caused? But I just wanted to add that the dirt race, in my humble opinion, really showcased throttle control that the drivers could have to take those stock cars, call it a taxi cab, Teletubby, whatever you want, and get them around that track. And it was all throttle control. Yes, it was slick. Yes, it was like being on ice. And, there was a few of them that grasped it better than others. But from what I recall, and looking back in the field, like MP has alluded to, there was some 3 wide, 4 wide, and 5 wide racing at times. And I think that's what people want to see. Having the sprint cars there with it, it really showcased the lack of speed that the cars were having, but they didn't wreck a whole bunch of cars, and they didn't wreck them bad. If they wrecked at all, they just, some body panels here and there, and they put on some good show. Some people go and watch sailboats race, so it's not all about speed. I'll end it there.
Yeah. For our fans, our people that are watching, people that watch after the fact, going to go back half a step that, everyone in this group right now, and there's still potential that we'll have a fourth. I don't want to, it's not that I don't want to mention him. I just don't want to chuck him under the bus. You all know
I
who
will.
I'm talking about. He had a work related thing come up. He called me earlier today and said, I don't think I'm going to make it, but I'm still going to try. So hopefully we can get there. But, week in and week out, at least the three of us here have the distinction of being full-time spotters. And, for people who don't really understand what that is, that means within the world of NASCAR, before a car can get on track, before a driver can practice, before you can qualify in some situations, before anything, you have to have your spotter in position and reported to the NASCAR spotter official. That's what we do. So from there, I describe what our job is in a lot of cases, especially on an oval, as really being a verbal mirror. We're the one that's telling the driver what's happening, because not that they don't know, but a driver really is limited in what they can see from how lack of focus there is in the helmet. Their heads are restrained, they can't really turn, there's not a lot of mirror action, so they can't be looking around trying to figure out. And that's a big chunk of what a spotter does. You guys have a distinction that you're both fairly technically minded. I'm not really technically minded. I'm not thinking about the setup of the car. I can, I've said for a long time, if I can see that the car's tight or I can see the car's loose, it's well beyond being able to fix. But, every week in and week out, the same group of us get together on the spotter stand, whether it's, side hill at turn 1 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or on top of a sea can at Wetaskiwin, or on top of what looks like a castle in Newfoundland. And, the same group of guys basically get together. There's, generally a little bit of pleasantries exchanged. We have a really good spotter official in Kenny, different Kenny. Everyone can be fairly hospitable. There's a couple of guys that just don't get along with each other, but we rarely, if ever, see any kind of turmoil up there. I know, all of a sudden everyone starts thinking back to the time that they had turmoil up there, but we can blame Ken for that, because he tends to be the hotter one out of anyone up there. But yeah, week in, week out. Let me see. You can chat. We got this group, and we're standing inches apart. Drivers are going to be yelling at you saying, "Hey, I got a problem with the 47 car. Go over and talk to the spotter and find out what's going on." And usually by that time, the driver of the 47s relate to their spotter that they got a problem with the 18, and then somehow we have to come together. We have to tell each other that the driver's pissed off. We can't really fight with each other, because then we get in trouble with NASCAR. But what is it? What is it that makes you guys keep coming back here week in and week out? Because it's really a thankless job.
Want to go ahead, Ken?
MD?
Well,
Okay. What makes me go back? Well, not being a race car driver, and not having the resources to be able to buy or do or my own car, let's say. The spotting to me puts you as close to the driver's seat as you're ever going to get, without being in the driver's seat, if that makes sense. So
100%.
you're very close to what's going on at the track, and my mantra is, if the driver has to use the mirrors, I'm not doing my job.
It's a good mantra. Most of the mantras up there is just shut up and drive, but I understand what you're saying. What about you, Mr. Roy?
I think Kenny just touched point on one key aspect. If he needs us mirrors, we're not doing a good job. So that's definitely part of our role. I don't know. I never really asked myself as to why I do it, other than I like the abuse. But certainly not for the paycheck. But seriously, I think like Kenny, it's the adrenaline rush. It's being out there for what, an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, without the ability to go for a pee break or anything, and you're just under the constant pressure of making the right call when you need to make the call, shutting up when you need to shut up because you got nothing good to say, and making sure you don't flip anybody over the balustrade because it tends to be a pretty high fall. So I would say pretty much the excitement.
Okay. Now, Kenny this year walked away with a championship, and I got to say I can't say is I know that's not your first, but how many can you say that you've been part of in your illustrious career? 5 times. With how many drivers? Or do you want to name the drivers?
I got 4 with Scott Steckley,
Hmm.
and now 1 with Trayton.
With Trayton, okay. But over your career, you've worked with a number of drivers. Do you have favorites or ones that you don't wanna talk about?
um, well, no, I talk about them all. They're all good and bad in their own ways. And they all have their own challenges. And they all require something different on the radio. I find anyhow, or you have to try to cater to them a little bit. Each driver is his own person and wants different information.
100%.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you do something kind of like, I don't know how MP listens. I think MP listens very similar to you. You guys have multi-team channels going on. You can because you and I have been part of the same group at 22 Racing for the last, bunch of years. You guys will often listen to what our channel is, but I don't listen to anyone. The only channels I listen to are mine and NASCAR. I don't listen to any other team communication. Is there anything that kind of stands out? Maybe this is more for the radio guy, being MP. Is there anything that stands out with how different spotter driver combos work in your perspective? Like, do you have one that you listen to just because it's entertaining, because there's going to be conflict on the radio, because that there's something else going on, because you don't work every single race, and being the radio supplier to the series, you'll often sit back and just listen, and scan and things like that. Does anything stand out in particular?
I'd like to think, like, for example, I'll answer this in a threefold answer. There are drivers that are very entertaining during the race. For example, one driver I particularly like to listen to is DJ Kennington. He's crew chiefing, driving. I might even say spotting at the same time while he's doing it, and he does a damn good job at driving while he's entertaining on the radio with Doug Devine. They're a superb pair to listen to, just because there's so much chatter going back and forth. A guy like Jojo or Joe Chisholm, Ken, yourself, Colin, with Gutler, I would say are the most entertaining spotters from either a technical aspect or a coaching aspect. You guys tend to talk a lot, and that's pretty cool. So I like to listen to you guys anytime I'm not doing the spotting myself. And if I am spotting, yes, of course, NASCAR is the priority, but I tend to wander off and try and see what's happening on the other channels, see if we're under attack or not. Just, to stay in tune with what's going on. You use everything you can, right?
Yeah, 100%. What I've got something in mind for me, but what would be your worst moment as a spotter? Obviously, when you've literally got somebody's life in your hands, bad things can happen. In our series, it's very unlikely that anybody will get seriously hurt, but they can get messed up. If you stick around long enough, something bad is going to happen. Does anything stick out as a particularly bad moment? Start with Ken.
I've had nothing that I can recall where I thought somebody's going to be hurt as a result of something I said. I certainly have had drivers undress me, I guess is a nice way to put it, because of a call that was made. But
Oops moment.
you know, just heat of the moment stuff. That's all.
Yeah. MP.
Yeah, like Ken, I think I've been fortunate. Let's touch wood, not to have been involved in a decision where someone could have gotten hurt based on what we said. I'd like to think we've saved a few, but one particularly comical or hilarious moment was spotting at the Oxford 250. It's one of the North American late model races that happens in Maine in July timeframe. And I remember the race started like at 2 in the afternoon, and I think it was like 7 at night when it finally finished. And I was in shorts and a t-shirt like I normally am, but at 7 o'clock at night, it kind of got frisky that night. So I remember calling on the radio if there was a fan listening that could bring me a hoodie or something. I would really appreciate it. So that would be a moment, that springs to mind as a hilarious spotter moment. But obviously, before I was doing the radio stuff, I've been on the spotter stand with a dead radio. So that's got to be a crazy moment. The other crazy
When
moment.
when you say frisky, you meant brisk.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Frisky is like when you're touchy feely.
No. Brisk. Cold. Damn cold. Heat shattering moment.
You started by saying frisky, and then you went on the radio to talk to the fans. Like, where is this going?
No. But you just brought back to memory one other moment that went oh shit moment. Actually, twice, same track, different reasons. But Autodrome Charrier's lighting went out during a main event twice. And that's not something you want to see because you don't know how the drivers are going to slow down being in total darkness after being under the big jumbo or not jumbotron, whatever you call the halogen lights. They're the big stadium lights. Those were two events that probably as a spotter you kind of go, oh shit. And yeah.
Yeah, I think my three worst are at the same track. I shouldn't say three worst, but my three most memorable all happened at the same track, which is Delaware, and nothing to do with the fact that it's Delaware. But 2 years ago, when we got caught up, and if I could take blame, I would, but nothing to do with me as a spotter. But we got caught up in the mess between Cameron and Lacroix towards the end of the race, where Alex got thrown up in the air and just destroyed the outside wall at turn 4, where I didn't know if he was hurt. I didn't know if he was okay for an awful long time. And that hollow feeling, that sucked an awful lot until, I finally connected with Todd Lewis, who said, no, he's out of the car. He's okay. And then I could kind of relax. The year before that, nothing to do with us on track, but watching what happened outside of turn 1 with a particular driver who swerved his car towards, I think it was Shea Gemmel, who had got out of his car, which was like one of the worst things I've ever seen in a driver do at a racetrack in my life. And then it was 2 or 3 years ago where my driver and counterparts left me at the hotel where I was waiting for him. Alex is notorious for being late, everywhere. So I just thought that they were late. I didn't know that they had actually left without me. Got to the track late, didn't have the opportunity to get to the truck to get my radio set, but MP had actually a spare radio that was tuned, and I actually had to work as a spotter, talking into the handset and then listening, all at Delaware. So maybe it's the track. It can't be me or that, but I don't know. That track has just done some crazy things.
But it's a great
Well,
facility.
they put on some great races, and your second point there, I was trying to erase that out of my memory, if you don't mind. Okay, so we're just going to let that one go away.
That was one of the. Oh, you were actually part of that program. I'm not being aloof.
We're letting that go.
I
We're
disconnected.
letting that go away. We're letting that go away.
That also turned into some fun in the infield as well. So, moving on. What are the highlights? Instead of and we got a number of people who are watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you can send us a note. It'll pop up, and we can throw it to the group here. But let's go back to Kenny here, who wants to move on. Obviously championships are great, but is there a particular memory that always comes back that reminds you why you want to be up on that spotter stand?
Oh, well, like you said, the championship, winning races is perfect. It's better than perfect. But being in the spotter stand and at the end of the race, feeling like you have been a part of it and you have accomplished something that made the race better for the team. So you made a call that the driver was able to utilize and move forward in the race. It's it might not have been a win, but you might have went from 10th to 5th or 8th to 4th, in that kind of thing. And I had one of those at CTMP standing in turn 5, or a car, but actually I shouldn't say car because it was a NASCAR truck, and I was helping out one of the truck teams, and a truck stuffed it into the wall in turn 5 into the tire barrier, and all that water then ran down the track. So as my driver's coming out of 4 into 5, I told him to put 2 tires in the dirt and run the curbing around and leave 2 in the dirt, have 2 in the asphalt, which he did. The trucks in front of him got into the water and did all this kind of stuff, and he got by them.
Yeah.
While they were squirreling around, and he got by him on the inside, and it was the last lap of the race. So he made some positions.
That's awesome.
That
MP?
to me was,
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. MP, what's your
And I guess it's Kenny's age that does this, but he's got all the good answers, so it's hard to come with a comeback right after him. But yes, it's about making a difference. And I have 2 magical moments that I remember. One of them is I want to say early 2000s, so this was quite a while ago. I was working with Patrick LaPearl in the ACT cars at Airborne Raceway, or Plattsburgh in the state of New York, and Lapper. And early in the race, we get in trouble, and Patrick cuts a tire, or we spin out. I forget exactly what caused the trouble, but um, the guys wanted to give up because they said there's no point racing. We're a lap down at this point. It's not going to work. And we were racing under a different set of rules where lucky dogs were allowed, because normally when we raced ACT, the lucky dogs were not allowed. And I guess it was a pass race. And the guys were about to give up. And then I started looking at the rundown, and I said, wait a minute, we're the first car a lap down. If a lucky dog does come out, we're going to be the one that's going to get, back on the lap. And so I convinced the LaPearl family, which tend to be intense on radios. They're great racers, great winners, but they're very intense on the radios, to go for it. And we got the caution that we needed. We got back on the lap, and we eventually won the race. So that was quite a moment. A pretty big field, and we got the win. And the other one was last year, and if I remember correctly, we were chasing Ken's driver Trayton was going in the lead, about to win, and I was working with Donald, and we're on his bumper, and we could have done the NASCAR move and move him out of the way. And I kept going on the radio, Donald, there's no point. There's no point doing it. And as you know, Donald tends to want to win or wreck. And he was going for the win, and he listened, and he did, and I think he earned a lot of respect from the other racers and other teams when he did that, because there was no point. He was not running for a championship, but Creighton was. So that was another special moment, because as a team we discussed it on the radio, and we agreed that it made more sense. Don't let him run away, but there's no point moving him out of the way. Race him clean, in other words. So that was a good moment.
Obviously, for people who don't know, this is Donald Teague. Donald is as good, in my opinion. He's as good as any driver on an oval that we have in the series. But his downfall is that he tends to be way too aggressive, way too early. He's taken himself out of so many races in the early laps, or taken some damage that just took him out of contention. That I don't know, I don't get to see him outside of the Pinty series, so I'm not sure what else he's been able to do, or where that style comes from, where if you can get away with it. But very cool to see him progress from when I first saw him join the series, whatever that was, 5-6 years ago. Very, very interesting character, off the track for sure. Like, these guys are, they're it's almost schizophrenic or psychopathic, that these guys have their persona when their helmet goes on, and then they have the persona, like Ken said, got a severe undressing from time to time from a driver, which I think there's a grace period. If something happens inside of a trailer, within the hour after, a race ends, that doesn't have the same lingering effect as if somebody just called you up out of the blue and started, ripping your ass. Those things kind of happen, but it's always interesting, the dynamics that different drivers have with their spotters. And to me, it's always about chemistry. It's not really about, if you've got the best driver, he needs to have the best spotter. The driver needs the spotter that works the best for them. You could have the best spotter in the world, and maybe it makes a difference for somebody who's new, or maybe, but if they don't get along, or they don't speak in the right way, it just doesn't work. Move on to kind of the last topic here before Ken's phone dies. But you guys have been around racing. You've been a part of racing for an awful long time. You'll work in other series outside of NASCAR, but what, in your opinion, what do you think needs to change? What do you think needs to improve going forward? We'll start with KC.
When you say improve, so you're talking with the NASCAR Canada series is what you're referring to.
This is our frame of reference, but if you got something else top of mind, that's fine too.
No, I think NASCAR Canada really needs to get the fans and the fan base more involved, or they need to get more involved with the fan base, so that we can get more fans at the track, so that there are potentials then for bigger purses to make this whole thing feasible for a racer to get involved at this level of racing. The cost of cars now, and the cost of parts, and the cost of manpower to build these cars and maintain these cars has gone through the roof. And they need to do something with the purses to make it feasible. And I realize that's racing as a whole. That's just not NASCAR Canada, and I shouldn't single them out, because that goes right across the board for all racing. Like, the racing today to win a race for about the same money that they did 10 years ago. And as we all know, everything has gone up fourfold in 10 years, if not more. So that's where I think they need to go.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get to MP. I read just earlier today, it definitely not a NASCAR thing, but SRX is suspending their operation before this year. And I mean, that was probably one of the more entertaining series that's come about. Mostly because they were able to put together so many well-known drivers for so many different disciplines. But if SRX was not able to make things meet, and they in their statement they said that you know basically they said they just don't have the money to run. That was kind of the short. They talked about economic challenges and environmental turmoil, but translation is they just didn't they couldn't make it financial success. What do you have to say there, MP?
I was gonna say you got to ask yourself how much of that has to do with the announcement that Ray Evernham and Robbie Kaufman did on Monday, where they said they announced they purchased the IROC trademark, whatever you want to call it, and they want to start putting up races like they did for 20 years, where equally prepared cars with drivers from NASCAR, from Formula One, Indy, would go against each other on different types of track. It was actually a big topic of discussion between a couple of friends of ours. Where are they going to, while the SRX are in a lot of short tracks, IROC was at the time for going to road courses in Daytona and Martinsville. If they're going to be competing against, quote, Berlin, Thunder Road, Stewart's dirt track, I forget the name.
Eldora.
But Eldora, yes, thank you. You're not going to have the same product to compare, and you're going to get the Sprint versus NASCAR Pinty's comparison going on. So the fact that they announced it on Monday and on Thursday, SRX postpones, because that's the key word in that press release, postpones, kind of tells me what's going on.
Yeah, but Ray was part of the SRX series, so I don't think
he sold
one's
out.
the result of the other. But yeah, I mean, the difference though is that the SRX series was in my mind was way more affordable than what IROC was doing. And the IROC series, especially at the end, the idea was, obviously the acronym is International Race of Champions, and they attract drivers from all disciplines, but all they really did at the end was run a Daytona and Talladega and, ran restrictor plates, which doesn't allow an F1 driver to show what they have, or an IndyCar driver, or, even, sprint car driver, drag racer. It all led, and they were all run on NASCAR weekends anyway. So it was really just about showing NASCAR, at the end, at least NASCAR against, what they could do in their own backyard. So, I liked what the SRX series was doing because, everyone gets, if you're going to be an oval racer, you get your start at a short track. So, running at those, kind of more forgotten tracks, it doesn't cost as much to race there. They could still put, a couple thousand people in the grandstands, and they started getting some TV presence. So it's, that was great racing. And, even, everyone's buddy Paul Tracy, going after Haley Deegan so badly. Like, Paul, don't be threatened, man. Just because she's a girl, she's not so scary. Like, everyone can do their thing with the steering wheel in their hands. So, but where do you think I kind of took you off track there? Do you have an opinion on what needs to improve in NASCAR and racing or whatever?
Racing in general, because Ken said 10 years ago the purses were almost similar to today. I'm going to go even further. I'm going to say 30 years ago, they were paying $10,000 to win races. And if you get that today, you get all excited because there's only a handful of $25,000 races throughout North America. Forget Canada. Throughout, Junior Anley won over $100,000 in the GM National or GM Motorsport days back in the early 80s. So, or was it early 90s? I forget. But those were very lucrative days in racing. As with today, how do you make a small fortune in racing? You got to start with a very large one, or else you're not going to make it. And so cost containment, definitely it. But there's also another factor that plays a lot, and I tend to see it because there's a couple tracks that we go to in Quebec that have drift nights, the eve of our stock car events. And as you all know, I stay at the track with my camper, and we get to see the drift nights. These younger lads, 18 to 25, 30 years old maybe, show up and they race all night, and there's probably 5,000 of them every night. But the difference between their program and our program, their program goes on for, let's say, 3 hours from start to finish, but it's always action packed. We have from 2 in the afternoon till midnight, but there's really 2 hours of real racing going on, because you got breaks between the heats, breaks for dinner or lunch, and all kinds of stuff. Mind you, as a crew, I appreciate the elongated schedule sometimes, because you're not running like a chicken without a head. But at the same time, when you think of it from an entertainment point of view, people go to the cinema, they spend an hour and a half, 2 hours. They go to drift nights. They're much shorter schedules. They go to all kinds of other events, and the ones that are playing on their phones tend to have a 10-minute attention span. So our 2.5 hour 100 lappers, I don't think are cutting the next generation, and that's why when you look at the people in the stands, they've all got gray hair or they're wearing caps because they don't have any hair left. And I'm getting there as well. So cost containment and schedule is definitely the two things that need to be on every racing organization and racers' priority. Because don't forget, it just can't be the track. The racers also have to put a stake in it, because if everybody wants all the big money, then the smaller races are not going to have anybody. And at the same time, if everybody just wants this type of schedule, well, it's not going to be profitable for the track operators. So it's got to be a joint effort, and it's not easy. I've walked those shoes. It's not easy. It's always about compromise and risk taking, and unless you got a lot of money, it's hard to make those risks sometimes.
Yeah, I think you guys have both kind of hit it. Kenny for sure. With containment, but getting more people involved. Which, what reason do people have to go to the racetrack? And the oldest expression is, you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. And right now, we're not really promoting what the benefit of the series is. We're not really promoting so much of what what happens on like on these short tracks is just crazy. I mean, the action is nonstop when we're running at places like Chaudière, Wetaskiwin, quarter mile ovals. We get to Saskatoon, which always puts on great racing. Sunset Speedway, and I don't want to overlook any particular track, but everywhere we go, these tracks are just fantastic and crazy. Then these guys get to show what they can do on road courses. Last year, 5 different road course events. These are easily, some of the most talented drivers anywhere that are doing great things, from, street tracks to, proper road courses, short oval, long oval. Uh, we need to get those people that, whether they're interested in becoming a driver, a spotter, they just want to be a race fan. Everyone needs to know they're welcome. And we just need to keep finding ways to get that word out. And I wish we could have more collaboration between not just NASCAR, but between these sanctioning bodies and these drivers who have to work so hard, so long to try and find the money. Like a race weekend, depending on what team you run with, depending on what your status, depending on, if you got, a guy like Larry Jackson's weekend doesn't cost quite the same as someone who's running with one of the more expensive teams. But I mean, you're looking between $25,000 and $40,000 a weekend spend just to be at the track. And like you said, if you can get a $10,000 first place check, you're doing a backflip. So no matter what, the sponsors, the sponsors are funding the biggest chunk of it, and then you've got to give the sponsor a reason why they want to come back. And if we don't have eyes on this, eyes on the TVs, asses in the seats, and we're not developing the next generation, we're going to be in big trouble here. And I mean, well, we might have, people might already call us has-beens. I mean, or never was, as the case might be for me. But we're going to be telling our grandkids about this thing that used to be racing, and it's not going to, there's not going to be these series anymore.
But Colin, in something you just said, it's important that I add my 2 cents. I have seen very little snooze fests out there. The problem is, how do you get the fan to come? And 20 years ago, the late Tom Curley had a solution for that. Every Thursday or Friday prior to the races, he create some sort of a parade downtown or next to a bar or whatever, and he'd line up a couple cars, and the championship leaders had to be there to sign autographs and talk with the fans, and because one of the things I've noticed over the years, people think NASCAR only happens down south in the U.S. If you tell them you do a NASCAR Canada race or a stock car race in Ontario or Quebec, they're saying, I don't believe you. You guys race locally here? You mean there's a racetrack? So unless you can drag the people out of the cinemas and out of the ballparks and out of whatever they do on a weekend and into a racetrack, they're never going to witness how competitive and how great our shows are. But the problem is, in order to do that, you got to leave the facility and leave the shops and go and find that spectator that doesn't know what stock car racing is all about.
Kenny, you got anything to add?
Well, MP is absolutely correct in that we have to let John Q. public know that we are here. So many people do not know. They know that there's races and there's race cars, but they just think it's Joe and Billy Bob that had a car in the backyard and take it to the track. So to get them to come to to witness a professionally run race, be it, the NASCAR series, the APC series. I apologize to anybody else that I forgot the names are there. But these promoters are giving it their best. And how then do we get the word out to these people that we're here and we want them to come and watch? So that's where the answer is. And I'm sure you could have another 3 or 4 podcasts just discussing that one point, is getting people to come to the stands.
Because once they come,
I don't have the answer.
Once they come, they will.
I don't have. Yeah.
I think Kenny just volunteered to join us for the next 3 podcasts. So that's awesome. I love that level of experience and that enthusiasm. And it's always, it's really a double-edged sword, and it's a catch-22, because yes, when you have the title of promoter, that is inherent in the job, but the double-edged sword, or the catch-22, is that tracks are paying really high sanctioning fees to get the series to come to the track, and in a lot of cases, I know, speaking to a bunch of the track owners and promoters, I know there's just not a lot of budget left over to be able to do that kind of marketing. So what ends up happening, and I think where the disconnect that we have in Canada is that there are drivers within our series that are more active than others, and there's teams that are more active than others. They are out there promoting, whether it's their own brand recognition stuff, or whether they're promoting the event on local news, local, whether it's TV, radio, or what have you. But the series doesn't really connect with that and help promote what the drivers are already promoting. And again, we've had this conversation privately, but let's not kid ourselves that racing is not really competing with hockey, with football, with baseball, with basketball, with, I mean, geez, we'll get, there's a lot of other fringe sports that are getting TV time now. We've got to do what we can to, not only attract people but convince them to get out, and I think we need a little bit more help and a little bit more support from the sanctioning bodies, whether it's whether it's NASCAR or whoever. It doesn't matter. Again, this is just in the context of tonight's conversation, but we need to, it doesn't cost anything for NASCAR to share somebody's tweet, to share somebody's Facebook post. It doesn't cost anything at all to to get more of that branding out and to share, like, hey, so and so made it on the local TV station, to show that and to promote it so that more people see it, and we get that awareness out there. And I think until we kind of figure out that this isn't the olden days where you could just put it on TV and people come. I mean, we have the benefit of running on TSN. We have the benefit of getting, being the lead into the, whether it's the Xfinity or the Sprint Cup stuff. We get some people to see it, but we've got to give them some incentive to get to the track. And, I don't care what it is. We struggle to get people to the go-kart track, and that's free admission. And, my go-kart track is, within 45 minutes of downtown Edmonton. Come on out. It doesn't matter what level of racing it is. Come out and watch a race, see it in person. See, you come to a go-kart race or you go to a local, short track race, you're going to get to talk to every driver that you want to. You can see it from a different perspective, and just get out there. And it doesn't matter if you want to get involved in racing. Man, I don't know a team out there that would turn down somebody who wants to come and sweep the floors at the shop. And if that's how you want to get started, there's so many people. That's really how they started, just by being there. And then all of a sudden there's an opportunity to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And before you know it, you've either got a spotter's headset on, or you become a driver, or, and that's, kind of who I'm thinking of Chase Briscoe, because he actually started by sweeping floors at Tony Stewart's shop, a long time ago. And, now he's one of the premier drivers in the series. I mean, if you decide that you're going to do it, you can do it. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm kind of rambling now. You guys got anything else to add?
Maybe just one last statement on how to get fans. 2 years ago, when we went to St. John's, Newfoundland, at Eastbound, you'd go in a pub or in a restaurant and you'd say, are you guys going to come to see the race? And everybody were saying, oh, is that the Target race that goes on in the streets and we can watch it from the pub? And then you'd say, no, it's at Eastbound. They say, oh, that's 40 minutes away. I didn't know there was races there. This summer, they did the parade, and frankly, just watching the race car drivers parade around on the pickups and then having to kiss the fish, it was just that was entertainment. But it got the product exposed to fans that would never come to the racetrack, because it's not downtown and it's not something they're used to. So I think that there's a lot more of that can be done. Yep, that's the rooftop on the Palace, and that's the excellent view our spotters get. That's the one privilege we have, is we get the best view. Sometimes you can't enjoy the race, but at least you get the best view. But like I was saying, the fact that they had the drivers participate in the parade, be on stage, be introduced, got us exposed to probably 1,000 people. Okay, mostly we're drunk, but that's a different story. Next time we can do a pit stop competition downtown or something. And that stock car racing has to be more than just about on-track activity. Has to become an event, has to become entertaining, because that's what people, when they go to a boxing match or a wrestling match, they go to be entertained. There's that 3-minute bout or 10-minute bout, but it's about being entertained throughout the evening, and that's what stock car racing needs to be.
Yeah, I think people are entertained. I mean, I've never heard not once have I ever heard a person who's come to a Pinty's race, a NASCAR race, and walked away and said, wow, that was really boring. It's never, not one time has it happened. People always walk away, and there's always a story. There's always, you know, kids get close up to the fence, or people, you know, whether it's their first time or their 5,000th time, you know, there's always something that they walk away from the event, and they always enjoy. So it's just a matter of, you know, kind of getting the message out and getting people to understand that, first of all, the races are there, and then to be able to you know, to talk them into getting into the track, because once they come, we know they'll come back. So anyway, anything else to add there, Mr. Carew?
I would only add that, the racing, or the good racing, is not always the first two, three cars. There is usually better racing back in the field. And us guys as spotters, we usually get to watch the race. Yes, we get a good viewpoint of what's going on, but we have to get home and watch it on TSN like everybody else, to watch the race, to see what actually really happened, because we're so busy just glancing this way and watching the car in front of our car and the car behind our car. But for sure at times, and the team I was involved with this year, we may have been leading the race at times, and we had a sizable lead. So there was no racing there outside of us getting through traffic. The racing was back in the field, and you don't always get that on TV. So the racing is better in person because you get more opportunity to see what's going on in the field.
Yeah, you said you triggered the thing that a lot of cases, you know, sometimes you have good nights and you're up front and you know what's going on there. And, you know, we've had some bad nights. I walk away from a bunch of races and I don't know who won. Like if we're having a bad night where we're running in 8th, 9th, 10th, unless I happen to see who ends up, you know, kind of getting the high fives on the spotter stand, I can get down to the garage and not know who won the race. I have no idea who it was, because like you said, you're so focused on, you want to be watching the whole track. You always have to have an eye kind of wandering for trouble, but that doesn't let you see what's happening up front. So yeah, I mean, that's 100% true. Not knowing what's going on aside from, you know, kind of two cars up and two cars back.
Yep.
MP, anything to add? Perfect. Well, gentlemen, one more time. Yeah, time will tell. Guys, thank you very much. Hopefully, we can do this again. It would be great to have our friend Jojo join us, or, you know, Phil, or whoever happens to be available. You know, be able to either talk leading into this season or kind of mid-season to you know, have a few on race you know, hot points to talk about. But at the very least, gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your winter. Look forward to seeing you at the first one at Canadian Tire here in whatever that is, about 4 months.
First weekend of racing happens early February. Colin, you got to change your schedule now.
For what series? My first race is supposed to be February 2nd in Tucson. So
February 3rd, Donald is racing at New Smyrna Speedway in a super late. And there's a couple of Quebec contingent that are going to be there as well. And usually there was, in the past, in the pro lates, a couple Ontario drivers that were there. And I know when I used to attend on a regular basis, Kurt Cooker was one of them. Powell was one of them back then. There was a few others. So I'm sure there's going to be some competitors showing up for speed weeks.
I changed my schedule if anyone asked me to be down there, but you know, my phone's not exactly ringing off the hook. So, you know, if we got one thing right tonight, is that we got Kenny with this like looking down perspective, because I mean, he definitely towers over top of us the best of time. So I like that view. I like the
he's squishing you right now.
It's commanding. It's, you know, it's dominating. I like it. Okay, boys, I'll let you go. Thank you very much for giving the time here, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
Take care. Stay warm.
Guys.
I'll do my part.
You betcha.
Thanks, boys.
Yep.
There we go. The first ever Spotter Talk episode of Talk and Torque. And hopefully we can turn this into a somewhat regular thing. Loved hearing from the guys. Really appreciate it. You know, Kenny Carew showing up, Trayton Lapsovich, a spotter the last couple of years, championship winning spotter. MP Roy, you know, most currently working with Donald Teege. But as much as I want to keep talking, thank you for everyone for watching. Should be back next week. Although a little personal stuff going on, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get to a computer or not, but I'll do my very best. Again, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.